In the rapidly moving field of education technology, it's always worthwhile, I think, to pause for a moment and take stock of the new developments that are occurring out there. Persistent trends and the challenges to effective tech implementation in real classrooms, and look at what the learning environment of the future, always be looking at what the learning environment of the future really looks like. The Z. Michaela Technology and Educators Conference that's being organized this morning is going to offer technocrats, school administrators, teachers, students, and technology partners like our company, Lime and Flow, soon to be Flow. It offers us a unique opportunity to collaborate and build a solid tech future, a solid and necessary, I might add, tech future that's going to enhance the educational experience of the next generation. For a better understanding, and here, by the way, I just want to pause again and thank the people from RenWeb, Z Jamaica Limited, who are doing a yeoman's job in trying to inculcate a web-based school management system and general web-based learning in schools, which is something we just have to focus on. Commendations to them all for forcing us slowly but surely in this direction. For a better understanding of the promising global shift towards more applied technology in education, the New Media Consortium Horizon 2015 Kindergarten to 12th Grade report solicited views and expert opinions from 56 education and technology professionals from 22 countries who offered a very informative snapshot of where EdTech stands now and where it's likely to go in the next 5 years. These experts almost all agreed that the adoption of technology in classrooms over the next 5 years and beyond will become the main driver of deeper learning experiences. Again, not just experiences where you swat what you learn on the blackboard in front of you or what you read in a book and regurgitate, but real deeper learning. And this is what an important trend is in determining the quality of future educational outcomes. Capitalizing on this positive trend is going to require strong teacher input. I emphasize strong teacher input to socialize students into the habitual use of technology to access, analyze, and utilize information in the service, again, not just of regurgitating memorized material, but in the service of finding solutions to multifaceted, complex problems they're going to encounter in the real world. And again, here I want to reiterate strong teacher input. It's going to be impossible to force this inexorable march towards web-based management, learning management systems if we don't get the input from all layers of the educational ecosystem. Not just students, but teachers, headmasters and principals, parent-teachers associations, old boys and old girls associations. However, to get this going, this is where the basic tools that facilitate access to these technologies play a very vital role in ensuring that this global evolutionary trend in education can be implemented right here in Jamaica through the accessibility, availability, and most importantly, affordability of the network connectivity that going to make this all happen. More than US $2 billion has been spent on technology investments over the past 10 years in Jamaica by companies like mine and other telecommunications providers that will remain nameless to ensure that the country is always ready to adopt or create the very latest trends that can revolutionize the way we work and learn. Indeed, Jamaica is part of the revolution that produced a sharp upward movement of global mobile phone subscribers. According to data from the Internet Trends 2015 Code Conference, mobile penetration jumped from 80 million, or 1% of the global population in 1995, to 5.2 billion users, or 73% of the global population last year in 2014. Jamaica, little Jamaica here, currently surpasses that global average, posting a figure of 109% mobile penetration. according to statistics from the OUR. Additionally, smartphone adoption at over 1.2 million, or 41% of the local mobile customer base. Unfortunately, not everybody is using the smartphone the way it should be. Some of us are still just profiling with it and need to really utilize all of the power that like a handheld computer will unleash. We're still 41%, and it's right about at the global average of 40% right now. So we're not that far behind. What's clear from these figures is that Jamaica does have the functional prerequisites to enable an internet future, especially for a population of teachers and students of all ages, right? Learning is going right through now to middle age, don't matter. This is quite promising, I believe, when considered in conjunction with the Internet Trend Report that shows just 39% of the global population enjoying access to the internet. And that's not very far off Jamaica's overall position at about 37% of all Jamaicans. So we're right there roughly on the global average. There is some dissonance around that number. There are issues, for instance, with whether we're counting the 200 or so community access points that are arrayed around rural Jamaica, for instance, and whether that's being counted in our number. But give or take a percentage or two, we're right around on the global average. So our country is on the right connectivity path. The infrastructure is in place. We've made, certainly our company, LimeFlow, has made the smartphone really, really accessible to the average Jamaican. So we're on the right path, and we can't afford to slow down. Even as the same technology report I cited earlier reveals that internet growth itself globally is slowing. We grew by 11% in 2012, that's year over year, internet use, 11% in 2012. That fell to 10% in 2013 over 2012. And in 2014, the growth in internet use over 2013 was 8%. So even as the rest of the world now, particularly in developed countries, are saturated with internet use and the growth is slowing down, we have to keep growing and growing our internet usage numbers as fast as we possibly can in order to catch up. So while we continue to accelerate the pace of internet adoption through the kind of right-fit alliances and combinations, like the recent merger between my companies now, Lime and Flow, I want to use this opportunity to challenge all of the educators out there and literally challenge you to rethink the traditional pedagogical approaches that you've employed over all these years to learning and begin to question everything from classroom configurations, the normal sort of approach where everybody lines up and sits in rows and rows within a classroom looking at the teacher in a command and control position at the front of the class, instead of in tight groups of students who collaborate and learn from one another with the teacher at the center of that configuration. We need to rethink school schedules. We need to rethink how individual subjects are actually taught and even how learning outcomes are measured. This evolution I'm talking about in the way we teach and learn is going to actually require a bit of a revolution. And I know that scares some people, but it literally is what we're going to have to engage in if we're going to be able to catch up. Because I believe the tools that we require, the infrastructure that we require, are largely in place. And I think all of our stakeholders, teachers, administrators, and definitely students, are willing to take on the challenge. At a very base level, we need to supplement this revolution that I'm talking about by incorporating technology into teacher training programs. When teachers don't use technology or are reticent about using technology in classrooms, as I understand that they are across the educational landscape, it's probably due to the fact that it's out of their comfort zone, wasn't incorporated in their training programs and processes. So where it's available, we're going to have to get teachers more comfortable with the idea of utilizing technology as part of their teaching apparatus. We therefore desperately need to increase the exposure during these programs in order to establish best practices and more efficient methods of lesson delivery via digital means, which doesn't mean merely improving computer literacy, right? Which we have to improve for sure. But we need to also improve the ability to deliver lesson plans that encourage real-life problem solving, turning that whole curriculum on its ear. Then, instead of just disseminating information and having kids learn it rote, encourage problem solving, relating the use of information to solving real-life problems by applying technology to the process of learning and growing. Teachers would then be free to explore the more modern interdisciplinary approach that facilitates teaching across different curricular disciplines. So we're not just focused on individual disciplines, particularly at the primary school level. This is an integration process that quite often makes learning come alive for kids and really begins to engage them and makes them want to learn because learning is fun. Students in turn develop a broader scope of knowledge, insights, and problem-solving skills that show them how to learn independently. In such a competency-based environment, educators need not rely on just classroom time alone as the constant variable and chief arbiter of educational attainment. Parents would then feel more at ease that the financial, technological, and emotional support they provide to their children at great expense to them throughout their school years are counting towards more than just a final exam grade. They're going to get to say that they're creating, and in conjunction with the schools, confident, independent, critical thinking, problem-solving young men and women, which is deeply satisfying, I believe, and would be deeply satisfying to most parents. Experts view this blended learning trend of technology plus in-person instruction that is quickly becoming common in many classrooms, certainly in developed and developing countries across the world, as the strategic ingredients that foster integrated knowledge. There goes that integrated knowledge idea again. For example, internet-driven blended learning facilitates the integration of science, technology, engineering, and math, STEAM curricula, and integrates that with the arts and humanities disciplines to develop a more rounded, cross-functional student who's ready for the challenges of the real world. However, in all of this, it emerged in this Internet Trends 2015 Code Conference I mentioned earlier that occurred in May of this year, that although the impact of the internet on the consumer segment of developed countries like the US economy was 100%, so 100% developed in the consumer segment, the figure for the education segment in the US is a dismal 25%. So while we are behind, we're not that far behind, even in developed economies, highly developed economies, where the internet and internet use is ubiquitous. Using it in the educational sphere is still at only 25%. So we're not that far behind, and I think we can catch up if all of the stakeholders get engaged. And by the way, in many ways, that 25% outturn should be seen as progressive and not a regressive number, because it's an improvement in the over the prior year at, again, adapting and using internet technology in the furthering of the educational experience. And one can understand this in the context where the hard copy books, journals, the teaching materials, and the long-standing standardized testing regimes are an inculcated part of the fabric of education. And it's just hard to turn those tried and true sort of legacy issues on their head, but I think we have to. Again, though, this is where the greater infusion of technology will have to create a revolution before the evolution that I'm talking about can naturally occur at all levels of the educational ecosystem. And while it's the responsibility of telecommunications companies like Lime and Flow to facilitate access to the next paradigm of education, there's a clear and compelling need for stronger collaboration between companies like ours and learning institutions to transition students from being mere consumers and memorizers of information to becoming creators and developers of their own desired outcomes. With this in mind, I go back to the New Media Consortium Horizon report, which identified 4 principles of collaborative learning in order to arrive at this outcome. They include placing the learner, the student, at the center of what's being taught instead of placing the subject matter at the center. emphasizing interaction between students and collaboration between them, and doing and problem solving. 3, working in groups, again, emphasizing and encouraging collaboration. And 4, developing, focus on developing solutions every day to real world problems, rather than just rote memorization and regurgitation of what you've memorized, so that we're testing memories. As with any changing and evolving sector, there are issues obviously standing in the way of implementing technology effectively to support all of these principles. Some problems are already being solved, though, in creative ways by educators and members of the educational ecosystem who are setting an example of the way forward, while others are making it way more difficult and haven't yet solved some of these issues. One challenge that persists in mainstream education is how to create a standardized learning management system using advanced technologies, so that you can apply a standard approach using these advanced technologies across the board to the hundreds of schools and learning ecosystems across the Jamaican landscape. And that's tough to do when you consider the varying levels of resources and available preparedness of many of the different schools and administrators who are being asked, certainly by me and others, to initiate the revolution required. But this is where school boards, regional authorities, Ministry of Education included, PTAs, Old Boys and Old Girls Associations, critical, are going to have to play a more active role in innovatively facilitating the embrace of additional technology and technological methods in the classroom. This is not something that is a nice to do. It's something we absolutely have to get done. The government's Tablets in School initiative, for instance, is clearly signaling that we're moving steadily in the right direction. But even there, and I have like a personal peek with that, we actually submitted a bid in order to have been a part of that program. But our bid was a little outside of the standard requirement. We stepped outside of the box and bidded on netbooks that would have been partnered with Google Apps. That would have included a learning management system that went along with the hardware that we were going to put in these kids' hands. We didn't believe that us putting hardware, a bunch of tablets, into kids' hands was the way to go. And we still don't believe it's the way to go, but it is a step in the right direction. But putting the hardware alone in people's hands is merely half of the battle. We have to include with that a clear and comprehensible learning management system, automated, technologically based learning management system, even for one subject, that everybody in the ecosystem can get their hands around. But it's definitely a step in the right direction. I submit that the education sector needs to adopt a code of practice that commits itself to a cultural shift towards this greater technology adoption in the classroom within the short to medium term, and however incremental, a journey of 1 billion miles, 1 million miles, starts with one step at a time. So however incrementally we implement this, we need to get going. While this takes effect, certainly the companies that I lead going to continue to bridge this classical digital divide by expanding and continuing to expand internet access and other networking capabilities to more places, especially in rural Jamaica. Our acquisition of Decal Super Wi-Fi technology in December last year is doing just that. So when we delivered internet to Schofield Primary, an infant school in the hinterlands of St. Elizabeth, just 2 weeks after we acquired Decal, we knew that Jamaica was going to take an important step in the right direction and ensure that the integration of technology and education would not be without what is going to be a crucial rural component. We cannot just implement these technologies in town alone. We have to ensure that it is implemented right across the patch in order to gain the benefits from this, not just to the education system, but to our economy and our society at large right across the patch. We continue to build on this at an even higher level of the education continuum, and I'm always pleased to share news about our successful technology and financial partnership with the World Bank and other donors for the establishment of Startup Jamaica, for instance, a technology accelerator that's been created for young, promising app and software developers that enables their exposure to key business and management skills. Started in the summer of 2013, and I can proudly state that several participants have now progressed beyond the beta stage to to monetizing their creative and innovative apps and software solutions, thus creating real businesses that contribute to the creation of employment and overall economic growth. Topical issue now is the fact that we're passing all of our IMF tests in a row, which is a positive for sure, but we also need growth. Growth is not going to come from mega projects alone, though mega projects are good. We're going to get growth in this country by facilitating and encouraging small business growth. And that is what is going to get us growth. Not just in this economy, frankly. It's what creates growth in virtually every economy across the world. And incubators and startup initiatives like Startup Jamaica are one way to do it, and we're in full support. To support the constant throughput of innovation to come from initiatives like Startup Jamaica and other projects like this in the future, the social process of learning must be enhanced at the lower level, using technology to drive the interactions between teachers and students in order to generate more effective results later on in their lives. Again, I have to reiterate, this is not something teachers, educators, administrators, we can be afraid of. We have to embrace it because our kids definitely do. The prevalence of and access to mobile technology in particular is going to help students feel comfortable in the role of digital creator. And the team at Lime and Flow pledged to continue our role as facilitator-in-chief. For instance, making smartphones, these incredibly powerful handheld computers, available to as many people in our population as we can, as we are doing with our Huawei Y330, for instance, which gets a smartphone, powerful little computer, into your hand for $40 US. And when we put it on sale, it's $20 US. This also means being constantly ready to facilitate and promote developments in education technology, including companies like ours helping the Ministry of Education and school administrators to develop and implement a bring-your-own-device policy for students and teachers in order to mitigate their technology costs while facilitating the integration of all of the various stakeholders in the ecosystem. Teachers, students, administrators, old girls, old boys, again, PTAs, etc. That's the ecosystem that we have to get engaged into what is going to have to be this new education paradigm. A paradigm, I might add, that going to facilitate students in the areas of adaptive learning, where software can adjust to the individual pupil's learning pace. Another challenge we have in moving kids along, we believe, at the same pace all the time. We have to adapt to each pupil's learning pace. Software and interactive learning gives you the ability to do that. And then we're going to deliver higher levels of achievement over time, over the time that is required by the individual student, rather than trying to force them all along at the same pace. So I'm very hopeful in concluding and excited about the innovative new ways and means by which the next generation going to learn and develop themselves and our country. It's therefore quite fitting and very timely that this Zed Makela Technology and Educators Conference is being convened to facilitate the REMWeb School Management Systems workshops, the product demonstrations, and what I hope and expect is going to be a highly informative panel discussion. In all of this, I give you my unqualified commitment that as long as I lead the businesses that I lead, which are at the center of technological advancement in the island, we're going to continue to invest and promote the development of Jamaica's massively important education sector. Thank you.